question. There is a race in the Middle East as a whole and a race inside Israel between what I call are the modernists and the medievalists. Okay, the medievalists want to take you back to militant Islam, to really a dark period in the history of the world. And the modernists want to be incorporated in the modern state of Israel, to partake of the extraordinary success that you see around you. And they have doctors, they have nurses, they have pharmacologists, they have high-tech entrepreneurs. They want to be there. The other guys want to take them back, okay, and dissolve the state of Israel or destroy it. And we have to make sure that the modernists win out over the medievalists. My government, you'd be surprised to know, gave an enormous amount of money, and I, wasn't doing it for votes. I did it because I believe in this, in helping the right side on this battle. Enormous amount of money, about $25 billion, billion shekels. Okay, but I gave it not to NGOs, Hamas NGOs. I invested it in roads, in infrastructure, in education, in the Arab communities. And I'm a Likud guy, right? By the way, you'd be surprised. I received about 10% of the Arab vote. Okay. Actually, today in the recent polls, the Likud under me received more Arab votes than all the Jewish parties together. Okay. Why? Because many of them want to be a part of this modernization and this success story. And I think if you ask me what is the answer to that, I think, beefing up security against the radicals and against the, against lawbreakers is important. But equally important is you want to move them into help as much as you can to give them enterprise, opportunity, education, law, and order that they want in their communities. And that's the program that I began, and the program that, God willing, I'll continue when I get the same battle you see in the Middle East. It's Iran and in Iraq and in Syria and in Yemen, as opposed to what is happening in the Gulf. Look at what happened in the Gulf. Look at what happened there. I mean, it's a fantastic example of enterprise and initiative. It just changed the whole way people think about the Arab world. Now, the Arab world has to go there and not to Yemen, okay? And Israeli Arabs have to go to here, to what you see around you, and not to Yemen.
So I want to ask you some questions about the state of the West more broadly, because obviously Israel is a key player in the West. In many ways, it's the tip of the sphere in a very unfriendly place in the world. But it seems like the international left is obviously increasingly anti-Israel, not just in America, but sort of generally speaking, whether it's Jeremy Corbyn and formerly the head of the Labour Party in the UK, or in multiple parties across Europe. It seems as though a lot of the ire against Israel is not directed against Israel per se. It's directed against nationalism more broadly. The idea that there should be a nation as part of a nation state, which I think underlies a lot of the rage about the fact that Israel passed a nation state law, recognizing that Israel is a Jewish state, which is what it always said that it was.
So, with equal rights to everyone, non-Jews. The only thing that, what the nation state, the Jewish state means? That any Jew can come to Israel automatically. That's all. That's really the main thing that it means. Why? Because for thousands of years, or almost 2,000 years, a little less, we were absolutely stateless and countryless, and we paid the biggest price that any people paid in the history of mankind, or humanity, as we say today, okay? All right? So, so if you're a Jew and you don't have a place to go, you can come to Israel. That's what the nation state means. Inside, everyone's the same. Everyone is the same. There are no differences. Equal under the law.
So when you talk about the Jewish state...
And that's the only place, by the way, where Arabs enjoy equality under the law, because the rest are non-democracies. And when people condemned Israel as an apartheid, I said, what are you talking about? If you're a Christian, or you're a homosexual, or you're a woman, in the Arab societies, in the Palestinian areas, you live in medieval times. In Hamas, people go to support Hamas. Hamas executes people who deviate from the strict rule that they impose, including the Quranic rule. What are you talking about? Israel is the beacon of democracy, attacked, defending itself, maintaining a democracy inside, the rule of law, equality. What are these people? Are these people mad? And the answer is yeah, they're quite mad. They're quite mad. It's so obvious. And you know who understands that best? The Arabs. The Arabs understand it. The Arabs around Israel. I have fan clubs in the Emirates and in Saudi Arabia. Well, that's interesting because they understand it too. They want a better life.
It is fascinating how Israel has become sort of the point of contention here. There's no other state on earth where people actually have a conversation about whether it ought to exist or not. Israel seems to be the only one. And in terms of sort of what people will accuse Israel of ethnic solidarity, despite the fact that, again, Jews are quite diverse. I mean, you have Ethiopian Jews and you have Moroccan Jews, like my wife.
Yeah, some apartheid. I personally brought tens of thousands of black Jews from Ethiopia to Israel. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. But if you ask me, what is the genesis of the progressive left's antipathy to Israel? It's their antipathy to certain Western values that we hold dear. You talk about nationalism, which by itself is not negative and quite positive. It helps build, communities. It's like, are families bad? Are families bad? You think families are bad? Well, hey, come on. You're preferring your children to other children. That's bad. Okay. Well, we know human society is organized around families, and the families are organized around nation states. And the nation states, like families, can cooperate with one another. Or unfortunately, because human nature is not uniform, they're bad people and they're bad nations. Well, you have to fight the bad and promote the good, right? That conception of how we organize the world is very different in the progressive left. And I think in many ways they hate Israel because they hate America. All right? Now, if you hate America, you're going to hate Israel. If you love America, you're going to like Israel. And you know who believes that? The Islamists. I mean, what does Iran say? It says, when they attack Israel, they say, we are you. That means Americans. Israelis are Americans, and Americans are Israelis. In a broad way, they're right. These are the values of freedom, of democracy, of individual choice, of pluralism. These ideas are things that are completely anathema to them. They want this regimented medieval world. And in a peculiar way, the association of the medievalists and their partners in the West, who are their partners, the progressives, join these radical Islamist radicals in attacking anything that's not only Israelis, but also anything that's Western. It's crazy. So we're not going to get the ultimate peace as long as you have militant Islamists there who are committed to our destruction. Okay, that's just not going to happen. So you have to create a wise policy. And my life has been committed to deterring those who around us, deterring those who wish to destroy us or rolling them back, and making peace with those who don't. And that's basically the division. You have to make a division. The Emirates want to have peace with you. The Bahrainis want to have peace with you. I believe the Saudi Arabia wants to have peace with us. We've already made peace with Egypt and Jordan. Make peace with those who don't want to destroy you and roll back those who do. Hamas wants to destroy us. Unfortunately, the Palestinian Authority, the other wing of the Palestinian people, they are not committed to. They're committed not to destroying Israel with terror, at least not in the first instance, but for the gradual dissolution of the Jewish state. So that's why we can't make peace with them. We can't make peace with them because they don't want an Israel. They want a peace without Israel. You divide your policies based on what can realistically be achieved. And my view is that with those who don't want to destroy you and those who do want to destroy you, you have to be very, very strong. If you're strong, you have at least a state of non-belligerence with the people, with the movements like Hamas. And if you're strong, you can make peace with those who are willing to make peace. And that's what we've done. That's what the Abraham Accords are. It's a change. It's a complete change of the view that says, no, you have to give the Palestinians who wish to see the end of Israel, give them the hills above Tel Aviv from which they can see the sea into which they want to push us into. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But that was the Reagan view. It's changed. You know, this country is different from what you saw 20 years ago. It's different. The skyline in Tel Aviv is different. You've got free markets, free marketeers all over the place. You've got, this is something that's really going to shock you, okay? we have, they just published in one of these business magazines, the greatest concentration of billionaires per capita in the world. Number one was Hong Kong. I suspect that's going to change. And number two is Israel. 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. But since then, you had this multiplication of high-tech entrepreneurs and so on. And the other thing is people will tell you, you know, critics on the left, they'll say, oh, yeah, but inequality went up. You know, it's the rich got richer, the poor got poor. No, actually, it's the opposite. Because we changed the welfare laws here and so on, and people went to work, the poor got richer. And in fact, the inequality in Israel initially went up as we did our market reforms, and then went down, 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 down. It's at a 20-year low. So Israel became a very rich country and a more egalitarian country, without curtailing competition, without curtailing enterprise. It's the opposite. Free markets and social welfare go together with the right policies. That was my policy.
So when it comes to the Palestinian Authority and the Oslo Accords, so very early on, you were obviously a critic of the Oslo Accords. I think the failure of Oslo has been demonstrated over the course of the last, most of my lifetime, over the course of the last 30 years. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was only, I think 11, 10, 11 when the Oslo Accords were signed. The failure of the Oslo Accords is pretty apparent to everyone, given the fact that these so-called peace partners just don't exist and probably never existed, and we're sort of a figment of the collective imagination of many people on the Israeli left. So, given the fact that the geography of Israel, for people who've never visited, everything in Israel is extraordinarily close together. Ramallah is essentially within an eye line of Jerusalem. Is there any plausible long-term, midterm solution?
Sure, that's actually developed in the plan that we discussed with President Trump, and I think it's a realistic one. It basically says this, okay? Palestinians in the Palestinian areas can govern themselves. Okay, they can have their parliament, their representatives, their executive, can have their flag, and they can have their national anthem. But there are certain sovereign powers they can't have. The rule is simple. They can have all the powers to govern themselves and none of the powers to threaten us. Now that means that, for example, in the tiny area, and you're right, it's a tiny area, Israel and the Palestinian areas together is the Washington Beltway, more or less, okay? That's it, okay? It's a tiny country, okay, tiny area. So west of the Jordan River, which is the boundary line, and at the Mediterranean, where we were both sandwiched in, Israel and Israel alone controls security. We control the airspace, we control the ground security, underground security in case they want to do tunnels and electromagnetic space, you name it, Israel alone. Well, I said that over the years. And I said, when people were talking about the vision for peace, I said, there are certain sovereign powers, the most important one being security, we control. And so my friends, including some who run the United States, said to me, but Bibi, that's not a sovereign country. I said, maybe so. But that's what is going to be there, because we're not going to commit suicide for an op-ed, favorable op-ed in the New York Times. It won't last more than 5 minutes anyway. We're not going to die for an illusory opinion. Now, some of my American colleagues, for example, Secretary of State John Kerry, whom I said this to, said, we can take care of that. We can make sure you can withdraw your security forces from Judea, Samaria, the West Bank, as they call it, because we will train the local Palestinian forces to fight the Islamic radicals. John Kerry brought John Allen, to show me a plan how this can be done. I was sitting there with our then defense minister, and they explained it. And we were skeptical, naturally. And so John, who's been a close friend, by the way, he said, well, Bibi, I can prove to you that we can do it. I want to take you on a clandestine visit to Afghanistan, and you will see how we train the Afghan forces to deal with the Taliban. And I said, John, I guarantee you this. The minute you leave Afghanistan, it will take at most days, no more than days, for the Taliban to sweep all these American trained forces that you have. And we're not going to take that risk. We're not going to withdraw our military from Judea, Samaria, and have the Islamists, the Iranians, Hamas, take over and destroy the state of Israel. So the real peace that we could have is let them have all the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers to threaten us. Security first, before anything else, stays with us. By the way, not only for us, it's for them. Because the Hamas would overtake the Palestinian Authority in 2 seconds, which is what happened when we left Gaza. We're not going to do that again. It's not a perfect peace, but it's the best thing that you could have.